This is a review of the Sony LCS-ELC6 case for the NEX-6 camera. It's made especially for the NEX-6 and the 16x50 lens that usually comes with the 6. The case is made of black leather. It's form-fitting. It's two-piece, of course. The texture is good. The looks are good. It seems to be well designed, and I think it'll provide quite a bit of protection to the NEX-6. However, it's very expensive. It's $100. I bought mine on Amazon. The case and the camera came from Amazon yesterday. I haven't had a lot of experience with it yet, but after some debate, I've decided to keep it. I think it's going to work well for my application. Whether it works for you is going to just depend upon what you expect out of a case. Okay, this is the bottom part of the case. This thin piece here is relatively, these thin sections are relatively rigid. The entire bottom and top half of the case are lined with a very soft felt, prevent too much wear and tear and abrasion against the body of the camera. Very impressed with that. As we get a side view, we can see that the base plate of the case is thick, and the two buttons for the clasps are built into it. Also, this knurled knob, which is attached to this threaded piece, that's used to insert into the tripod hole within the bottom of the camera to keep the case attached to the camera. I'm not really sure that that sort of strength is necessary. I think the case would stick to the camera pretty well even without that. However, it's not a simple matter to get this out. You can't just unscrew it from the case. It's held in place by some sort of a ring that's not visible from the exterior. I'm sure it would come out with the right amount of force, but you'd have to really get after it to get that out. Now, why would that matter? Well, we'll see in a little bit that with the camera in this bottom plate, it's unequal, it's uneven, and it'll tip over a little bit. Not a big deal, but it's a little irritating. And I'm not sure that this is necessary. It might be, but I think the camera would probably stick to the case pretty well even without it. So anyway, it's well built. I don't know if you can, I'm in my hotel room and the lights are kind of dim, but maybe you can see the texture of the case. Very impressive. Feels great to the hand. Okay, the top half of the case. The top half of the case has a protrusion that seems to be made for the 16x50. The 16mm pancake prime will also work with this, of course, because it's smaller than the 16x50. But the 24mm Carl Zeiss, that's not going to fit in here, nor will the 10x18 Sony. I've been thinking about getting that. 16x50 or the 16mm, that's about as, I think that's about the only lenses that's available from Sony right now that are going to fit in this case. Not a showstopper, but it's something to consider. All right. Once again, just as in the case of the bottom half, the entire inside of this is lined with a very soft foam, or some kind of a felt kind of a material. This portion of the case is going to butt up against the back of the camera. This will be up against the top portion of the back of the camera, and this padded section here is going to lay up against the display. You can see that there's a sleeve here for an extra SD card and extra padding here and here to protect the display and the control wheel. Strangely, there's a little protrusion right here. It's a little square protrusion. I don't know if you can really see it. I don't know what that's for. I really haven't figured that out. I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about it. There might be a purpose. I don't see why. I don't really know why they'd put it in there for no reason at all. It feels like it's hard plastic. I'm not really sure what that's for. But this is well padded. This section here is actually going to be up against the top of the camera, and it also is padded. Nice padding here. And then the lens cup, the sides of it are firm and rigid. They're lined with felt, but they're not really padded. Try to get the light in there. The bottom, however, is padded. There's padding back in here, and it's well padded to protect the lens. This area right in here. So it's padded about to the same extent as this area here that's going to protect the back of the camera. Most of the rest of this, well, this is this section right here that goes up against the top of the camera, that's also padded. But most of the rest of this is just thin, unpadded felt that's applied to the leather form of the case. Here you can see a flexible flap that's going to attach to one of the buttons on the bottom of the case, and a less flexible flap that attaches to the other. I'm really very impressed with the build quality. Just the whole case feels good, it feels right. It doesn't add too much bulk to the camera, so the camera remains relatively small. For those of you that are thinking about getting the NEX-6 and haven't actually had a chance to view one in a store, I didn't. I had to look on the internet and try to get a sense of the size myself. The NEX-6 is actually smaller than I thought. Thought it would be pretty small, but it's actually smaller than I imagined. Even after watching some of the size comparison videos, when I actually got it, I was pretty surprised at how small it is. And the case doesn't add much bulk to it. Finally, we have the camera in the case, a complete case. This is what it looks like. It's not pretty, but it's functional. Provides quite a bit of protection. You can see that the only portions of the camera that are really even open to the exterior are the upper portions of the sides. A little bit of a slit right there. That's true for both sides. There's a little bit of a strip right here and a little bit of a piece right there that's exposed. But relatively speaking, this case provides an awful lot of protection for the camera, and it feels good. Just putting my hands squeezing here and there just feels solid, feels like the camera is well protected. Now, some of you are going to be wondering about the eyepiece, optional eyepiece that you can attach to the viewfinder. The case does work with that in place. It's not a major issue, but of course there's a little bit more stress right up in here. It does work. As a matter of fact, I took that off for this video. I've had the case on there for a day with that eyepiece extension in place, so that's not an issue. Balance is a little better with the two halves attached to one another, but it's still kind of a little flimsy. Not a big deal. The fact is, protection is there. The camera will be nice and safe in my backpack. Could probably withstand a fall or two. I'm not going to risk it, but I think if I did bump the thing off the table, it'd probably be okay. Just feels good. That protrusion that I mentioned in the back of the top half of the case, that works out to be right around in here, which is over the control dial, kind of over the top half of the control dial. Still really haven't figured out exactly what that's for. It might be to balance the protrusion created by the eyepiece. That's the regular eyepiece without the extension. That eyepiece still produces a little protrusion right here out this direction. So this may be a little bit of a balance. This little protrusion down here may be a little bit of a balance to even that out. But that doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. I'm sure they put it in there for a reason. Why? Maybe some of you have ideas, and if you do, post them. Again, I'm satisfied, very satisfied with the case. There are limitations, as I've discussed, but for my purposes, I think the case is going to work out really well. Boy, it was expensive, $100 for just a case, but I think it's going to suit my purposes. Thanks for watching. A Reddit user has pointed out that my original NEX-6 review did not show the camera in the bottom half of the case without the top half attached. Not sure how that happened. I intended to do that, but I didn't, so I'm going to shoot this additional piece of footage and then add it to the original review and then upload the new review. Before we actually look at the case on the camera, note that there's an ergonomic design to this grip. Little indentation here for the middle finger while the index finger sits up on the shutter control. Given the size of the camera, small size, and the size of my hands, which are relatively large, I'm very impressed with the design of the NEX-6 because it feels really good in the hand with this grip. This is rubberized, a little texture to it. It just feels natural, feels solid, and very comfortable. Feels right, feels perfect. Unfortunately, the case is going to interfere with that a little bit, not to a great extent, but the camera isn't going to be as comfortable, as easy to hold with the case in place. Let's put the two together. The knurled knob here is used to attach the case to the camera. It's very easy to insert. They fit together very firmly. Once again, I'm going to note that the build quality is exceptional. I'm very impressed with it. The design is fantastic. They provided a maximum amount of protection with a minimal additional amount of bulk. The material is on the sides. The bottom is thick, of course. That's not a factor. But on the sides here, the leather is relatively thin. It's very form-fitting. And it is, I wouldn't really call it padded, but there is a little give there in this material. The downside to the bottom half of the camera is the way in which it reduces the gap between the grip and the lens. Up top here really doesn't apply, but down lower, down in here, it certainly does prevent your hands, your fingers from getting down in here and getting a solid grip on that part of the camera. It's not a showstopper though at all. I've used the camera now for a few days with this grip, or with this case, and it's a minor distraction. Still feels really good in the hand. It's just not quite the same as it would be with the grip by itself without the case obscuring it. I'm still very happy with the case and very pleased with it. So that's it.